The doctor looked at the results and then looked at Diane, then back at the results. "How old did you say you were?" 61, Diane said. The doctor was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that carries weight. "These results," he said carefully, "look more like someone in their early 80s. Diane had driven herself to that appointment. She drove herself home, parked in her driveway, and sat in the car for 20 minutes without going inside. 61 years old. Arteries of an 80-year-old. She needed a moment to understand what that meant, and what, if anything, could be done about it. I want to ask you something that most people have never been asked directly. How old do your legs feel? Not how old you are. How old your legs feel. When you stand up after sitting for an hour, do they respond the way they did 10 years ago, or do they negotiate? Do they require a moment? Do they remind you briefly that they have been working longer than you sometimes remember? Now here is the question that changes everything. What if your legs are aging faster than you are? Not metaphorically, biologically. What if the vessels inside your legs, the arteries, the veins, the small capillaries that determine how much blood reaches your calves, your feet, your ankle joints, what if those vessels are older than your birth certificate says you should be? This is not a theoretical question. It is a measurable reality that affects more adults in their early 60s than any doctor's waiting room would suggest. And here is what makes it both frightening and, pay attention to this word, reversible. Vascular age is not fixed. Unlike the number on your birthday card, the biological age of your blood vessels responds to what you do, to what you eat, to how you move, to choices made consistently over weeks and months. Diane's doctor said something to her that she has never forgotten. Your arteries aged faster than they should have. But faster in one direction means possible in the other. Possible in the other. Stay with me. Diane is 61 years old. She lives in North Carolina. She was not, by any measure she knew, an unhealthy person. She didn't smoke, hadn't in 20 years. She kept her weight within a reasonable range. She walked her dog every morning, 30 minutes, sometimes 40 if the weather was good. She was not someone who ignored her health. She was someone who thought she was managing it. The symptoms started the year she turned 60. Not dramatically. Nothing about this story is dramatic. That's what makes it so easy to miss. Her legs would tire earlier than expected. Not painful, just done. Finished in a way that didn't match what she had actually asked of them. A 30-minute walk that used to feel like nothing started producing a heaviness in her calves by the final 10 minutes. A grocery run that should have been routine left her legs feeling borrowed, like they belonged to someone who had been on their feet all day rather than someone who had done exactly what she always did. She mentioned it to her sister on the phone. Her sister said, "Diane, you're 60 now." This is just what happens. Diane accepted that for a year. Until her annual physical, when her doctor, reviewing her blood work alongside new vascular screening, said something Diane had not expected. Your inflammatory markers are elevated. Your arterial stiffness index is outside normal range. I'd like to refer you to a vascular specialist. Is it serious? Diane asked. It's significant, he said. There's a difference. That distinction, significant, not serious, was the thread Diane held on to all the way to the specialist's office. And to the moment when the specialist looked at her results, looked at her face, and asked how old she was. Here is what arterial age actually means, and why it matters more than most people realize. Your arteries are not passive pipes. They are living tissue, capable of expanding and contracting with every heartbeat, adjusting their diameter to regulate blood flow. A young, healthy artery is elastic. It stretches. It rebounds. It adapts. An aging artery stiffens, loses elasticity, becomes less responsive. This stiffening, called arteriosclerosis, is a normal part of aging. But here's what most people never hear. The speed at which it happens is not predetermined. Stop, because this is the most important sentence in this entire video. Vascular aging accelerates dramatically, measurably, in ways that show up on medical imaging in response to specific lifestyle factors: chronic low-grade inflammation, elevated blood sugar, even without diabetes, oxidative stress from processed foods, prolonged inactivity, chronic sleep disruption. Each of these, individually and catastrophically in combination, accelerates the loss of arterial elasticity beyond what age alone would produce. A 2022 study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that adults with high-risk lifestyle factors showed arterial stiffness levels consistent with someone 15 to 25 years older, regardless of their chronological age. 15 to 25 years older. Diane was 61. Her arteries were in their early 80s. Not because of genetics, not because of bad luck, because of a specific identifiable pattern of low-grade chronic inflammation accumulating since her mid-50s. And here's what her specialist said that changed everything. The same mechanisms that accelerated the aging are the mechanisms that respond to intervention. You didn't get here overnight, but you don't have to stay here either. Diane sat in the specialist's office with a notepad on her knee. She had brought a notepad. The kind of person who writes things down because she knows she will need them later. She wrote down everything. Arterial stiffness index, elevated. Vascular age, estimated early 80s. Primary driver, chronic systemic inflammation. Reversibility, possible with sustained intervention. Then she stopped writing and looked at what she'd put on the page. When you say reversible, she said, what does that actually mean? Can the arteries actually become more elastic again? The specialist leaned forward. Arterial tissue has a capacity for remodeling that most people underestimate. We've seen measurable improvements in elasticity, verified by imaging, in patients who committed to consistent anti-inflammatory lifestyle changes over 3 to 6 months. The degree of improvement varies. But the direction of change, yes. The arteries can move in the other direction. Yours are aging in a way that can be addressed. The question is whether you'll address it. Diane looked at her notepad, at the number 80-something, in a 61-year-old body. She clicked her pen. Tell me exactly what to do, she said. 5 targeted interventions, not a diet, not a program. 5 specific changes aimed directly at the mechanisms driving her accelerated vascular aging. The first was extra virgin olive oil, daily, consistently, 2 tablespoons, every day. On salads, over vegetables, in soups, never for high heat frying. Heat degrades the polyphenols. The oleocanthal in Quality Evu works through the same anti-inflammatory pathway as ibuprofen. The polyphenols protect LDL from oxidation, the process that embeds cholesterol in arterial walls, and accelerates stiffening. The landmark Predimed study, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, found that consistent EVOO consumption produced a 39% reduction in major cardiovascular events in high-risk adults over 5 years. The second was sleep, protected, non-negotiable. 7 to 8 hours, not as a luxury. As a vascular intervention, during deep sleep, the body produces nitric oxide, the compound that signals arterial walls to relax and expand. Without adequate sleep, nitric oxide drops. Arterial walls stiffen faster. Inflammatory markers rise. Diane had been sleeping 6 hours for nearly a decade. She started treating 8 hours like medication, not optional. A dose her arteries required. The third was walking with intervals. Her 30-minute morning walk remained. But every 10 minutes, 2 minutes of faster pace, slightly breathless, not running, just challenging. These brief bursts triggered nitric oxide release and stimulated the endothelial cells lining her. Arterial walls, the cells responsible for maintaining elasticity. The fourth was refined sugar, eliminated. Not reduced, eliminated. Elevated blood sugar produces glycation, sugar molecules binding to proteins in arterial walls, making them rigid, less elastic, more brittle. Glycation is one of the primary drivers of accelerated arterial aging. Remove the driver, remove the acceleration. The fifth was dark berries, daily. Blueberries, blackberries, or cherries, half a cup every morning. The anthocyanins have been shown to directly improve endothelial function and reduce arterial stiffness in as little as 8 weeks of consistent consumption. 6 months later, Diane returned for her follow-up imaging. The specialist reviewed the results, then looked at her. Your arterial stiffness index has improved measurably. We're not at age-appropriate levels yet, but the trajectory has reversed. You're moving in the right direction. Diane drove home, parked in the same driveway where she had sat for 20 minutes 6 months before. This time, she went straight inside. 5 things, starting today. Extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons daily, cold on everything. The most studied anti-inflammatory food in nutritional science. Sleep, 7 to 8 hours. Treated as a vascular intervention, not a luxury. Walking with intervals, 30 minutes. 2 minutes of faster pace every 10 minutes. Ask your arteries to stay elastic. Refined sugar, out. Remove the glycation driver. Slow the stiffening at its source. Dark berries, half a cup every morning. 8 weeks of consistent use. Measurable arterial response. 5 things, starting today. Vascular age is not a sentence. It is a starting point. Diane told me something about the drive home after her follow-up. She said, when the doctor said my numbers had improved, I didn't feel relieved exactly. I felt like I had been given time back. Time that would have kept moving in the wrong direction if I hadn't understood what was happening. Time moving in the wrong direction, silently, without announcing itself. In a 61-year-old body that looked fine from the outside, while the vessels inside aged at twice the expected pace. Your chronological age is fixed, but your vascular age is not. It moves. And the direction it moves depends on what you do consistently starting from this moment. You are not too young for this to matter. You are not too old for it to change. Diane was 61. Her arteries were 80. 6 months later, They were younger than they'd been in years, not a miracle. Biology responding to intervention, the way it was designed to. If Diane's story felt like something you needed to hear today, don't scroll away. Leave a comment. 2 or 3 words. Tell me how old your legs feel, because someone will read your answer and recognize themselves in it. And that recognition might be the moment they decide to stop accepting a number that doesn't have to be permanent. Hit the like button if this reached you. Subscribe to Strong Legs, Independent Life every Tuesday and Saturday at 11 a.m. because the number can change. It just needs the right direction. Keep smiling, keep moving. And never forget, you've got this.